Rajiv is going to give a whole different look into really, what I call intrusion detection, but it really isn't, because it sees ahead, and it's a very important thing that needs to be recognized as we are addressing some different situations, again, as I alluded to earlier in my presentation, where we now have real-time data coming in. So with that, I'm not going to take your thunder, Rajiv. You're the expert, and love to hear your information.
Thanks, Larry. What I wanted to talk about is a very different approach to securing the smart grid. The conventional approaches tend to take a whole system view of how to protect the systems inside the system. So we wanted to sort of look outside the box and look at it from a holistic business and systems architecture model. Now, if you look at the structure, what typically happens is that you have business processes or business methods, which are really a collection of related structural activities or tasks, events, that produce specific services or products, and they serve a particular role for a particular customer or customers. And what business processes are comprised of is a set of sequential sub-processes, tasks, events, or activities that you see in the second box, with alternative paths depending on certain conditions as applicable, and performed to achieve a given objective or to produce a given output. And each process can have one or more input, and the input and outputs may be received from or sent from other business processes or other organizational units, or internal or external stakeholders. So this is the model that I wanted to look at, and this is how we sort of focus on building our solution. So what you have in this model right here is a set of business processes that the company defines. It could be a revenue processes, is something that controls the smart meter, something that provides an orchestration of a set of events that will meet your objective. And what those are is really a set of activities or events that sort of trigger the smart grid system. Now, the smart grid system is really a set of specific applications when triggered by activities and events will perform a specific function for you. So if you divide that into three categories, we can see a business process defines a set of activities. You have activities that are defined in events, and these events also come out of the system itself, and they trigger other activities within it. So it's this orchestration that we need to look at. So now, in order to protect the grid, what we're saying is that the input activities or events must be audited in context of the business processes prior to the activities or event triggering the smart grid systems. And this is how you can actually start protecting the smart grid system. So what we have done is, as you can see in this next diagram, is that you have a set of business processes that have been defined. A set of inputs and activities have been generated by the systems or other processes or other tasks. And what we have is really a module that we put into an environment where it basically listens to those events and compares that to the business process. So what the business process audit system really is simply a business audit system uses the documented business process or method to check if the input event causation history conforms to the prior to an input event triggering a downstream system or to the smart grid environment. If the input events go unchecked or unaudited, events arising from external or internal cyber intruders or fraudsters will cause the downstream systems to trigger, thereby compromising the business. And that's exactly what's happening. In the earlier discussion, we had a lot of hackers, etc. What they're actually doing is that they're basically spoofing the network, looking at what are some of the functions coming out, and basically building their own sets of business processes and basically triggering the smart grid systems and hijacking it to their own end. And if the events go unchecked or unaudited, then input events can cause operations risks, privacy, and compliance issues. So this is a piece of puzzle that needs to be solved. So now, if we audit every event that's coming into the network, now I wanted to clarify is that the previous solution really talked about the layer 2 approach. We're only looking at application events. We're looking at the layer 7, or the application events that arise at the application layer, which actually are really a group of tasks that accomplish a set of objectives to send commands to the infrastructure to perform its functions and to perform its objectives. So that's really the difference. So we're looking at those events at the application layer. So we're not looking at every system event that's like all the IP protocol events or all the system noise or the network noise that comes out. We're actually looking at the application events that are arising from the system. And we audit those events. And we see if those events are part of that business process or not. And if they're not part of that business process, then we have the opportunity to block those events and basically thereby protect the smart grid system. Where the cyber intruders are going to set out their own set of business processes. Now, our audit system will not have their business processes to check on because they're not going to be allowed to come in because they're not following the business processes that were set out by the company. So in that way, that any other processes or any business processes that come out will get blocked because they're not defined in our system. And so this is the way that we can actually block the events actually coming in into the smart grid system and actually protect it. So that's really the beauty about it. So it basically avoids looking at in the current approach where you look at the system data coming outside and try to figure out what happened when someone trying to intrude your system, or was all the information really done in a proper fashion. So this approach actually essentially, based on a lot of the work we've done with a number of corporations, it can basically save about 80 to 90% of your IT costs for information management. And we actually have a patent on this whole business process audit system. And if you feel like you can actually go and read it and look at the information behind it. So that's really the high-level view of the presentation. And the key thing that we wanted to point out is that the key difference is that in the traditional systems, you're looking at the output of a system, not the input. You're not auditing the input. So it's very, very difficult to protect the smart grid system when you look at it from an output perspective. So that's why you have to look at the input and input events and see if they're in compliance to the defined business processes and methods before you can actually execute. So that's really my very brief discussions on this presentation, and I'll pass this back to Larry.